Buongiorno e benvenuti. Welcome to Art Yoga Pills with me, your host, Binny. In this space, we will connect and share together about creativity, inner child, and self-awareness. Siete pronti? Enjoy! Ciao a tutti, Kia ora, and welcome to a new episode of Art Yoga Pills. I haven't been here in a while, but I'm glad to return with a wonderful guest. I have with me today Amanda. How are you, Amanda?
So good. So happy to be here. Thank you.
So I got the opportunity to know Amanda during one of her wonderful training here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and she is the director and creator of SomaPsych. I'm aware that my Italian pronunciation might sometime come along and mispronounce things, but I wanted to be very precise because it's been a very important journey for me through the trauma-informed practice that you share with us on the day, and that bring a lot of curiosity around that to dive a little bit more with your sharing and to let other people know what all of this is about. But before to dive into that directly, I would like to actually step back and ask you my first question for you. So, who is Amanda, if you would like to share?
No small question. Hi, who is Amanda? Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm originally from Canada, so my accent comes from Canada, residing in Aotearoa for about 8 years now, and absolutely love it. This whenua is definitely home now. And yeah, it's been a journey of who Amanda is. I think I'm constantly discovering that. I think each day new versions or new layers come up and come out. I'm a self-proclaimed geek. I love to learn. I love studying. I love knowledge, wisdom, everything in between. I've practiced many different somatic and yogic practices. So I love being in body as well as nourishing my mind. And I think that's where everything really intersects or comes together for me. I love the mind, the body, everything in between, and where that leads, the journey that that takes us on. So I'm a curious, multi-passionate human. That's me in a nutshell.
Beautiful. And I was resonating with everything that you were sharing about you. I can reflect that back to me of a curious, passionate about learning and multitasking as well.
All the
In
things.
all the things that make us who we are. And so thank you so much for that. And I guess that my next curiosity comes from the title that comes as well with in a professional way with who Amanda could be in this direction. And when I'm thinking about you in the role of director and creator of your project, I'm
Mm,
wondering where the journey begin in all of that,
mm.
where your curiosity brought you to where you are today, and if you feel like sharing how that process was for you in connection with SomaPsych.
Yes. Yeah. SomaPsych is my everything. I I created her years and years ago. And well, I don't even know if I really created her. She came to life and was like, this is the thing. But she's gone through many iterations. So it might be helpful. I'll kind of quickly speak to SomaPsych today, and it might help make sense of going back and then weaving it forward. So today, SomaPsych is an organization that focuses on trainings, resources, education, workshops, retreats, everything in between that is focused on trauma-informed and person-centered approaches to nervous system support, regulation of self. So think mental regulation, emotional regulation, while centering social justice and systemic change. So really it's about empowering and educating individuals to reclaim their own innate sense of nervous system regulation, restoration, so that we can then lean in and seek out the bigger systemic changes that are very, very needed, especially in this very interesting and unique time in our human history. And so if I think about where SomaPsych is today and reflect on how I got here, goodness me, such a journey. I don't even like, where do we even begin? It's such a rabbit hole. So bear with me, come back to the roots, and here we go. I, in a past life, I did my marketing degree or marketing certification back home in Canada. And this came from a very, I think, American dream, like get the degree, house, kids, all of that, like very neoliberal capitalist dream. And I was like, yep, I can tick all those boxes, got it. I've always been very passionate and give 110 to everything I do. So when I was going through marketing, after apply, or I guess ran to be what's like our student association. So on the student association, you have different roles like the president, vice president, and I was the vice president of student experience or student life. And I got nominated alongside my best friend at the time. And she was the president. I took on student life and we ran the student association. And in that time, I was in charge of organizing events and enhancing student experience on a post-secondary campus. And I absolutely loved it. And it's what opened my eyes to the human experience, I think. And that might sound strange from a post-secondary campus, but seeing what students went through and interacting with what they wanted and needed, it just opened my eyes to the level of pressure and expectation we put on ourselves from day one, and the pressure from family, friends, tradition, society, everything in between. So that was already kind of on my mind. And then we had the opportunity to apply for government funding to do a student initiative. So in true Amanda and Tegan fashion, we were like, go big, let's just do this. So we applied for funding to open a student support center that we called a mental health student support center. We got the funding. We opened the center, and it was the first center of its kind on a post-secondary campus in all of Canada. So it was a huge deal, and it was solely focused on the mental health of students. So we brought in different organizations, different initiatives that solely focused on true, genuine well-being and connection. We interacted and learned from so many different people that were trying to move mental health in a different direction. So this really opened my eyes to systemic change and how it's so much bigger than what we're fed as, like it's a personal responsibility to take care of mental health, where these organizations were showing actually the school needs to be held accountable, this market needs to be held accountable, this field, this industry. And so all these things were kind of starting to show themselves. And within all of that, I was giving it my all. So I was running events for 20,000 plus students, events every single month, opening this center. And towards the end of my time, it was a 1-year contract to be on the student association. And towards the end of it, I noticed that I was just getting sick. I was so run down. Everything, it was like, go, go, go. And I remember a colleague was like, girl, you are not just burning the candle at both ends, you're burning it in the middle. You've like thrown your candle in the fire. Like you have nothing left. And I was like, I'm good. Everything's fine. This is what we do. It was like that hustle and grind culture, that like wearing busy as a badge of honor. And I was like, no, I'm good. And then I was not good. I ended up being hospitalized for what I now know to be burnout. At the time, they didn't really know what it was. They just said, like, you're not okay. I was like, correct. And so being in hospital for that kind of highlighted just how exhaustible we are and how we like cannot maintain that type of go, go, go all of the time. And so when I came out the other side of that, I at the time didn't recognize how long burnout takes to recover from. Started burning the candle at both ends very quickly all over again. I went and tried to do a 180. So I tried to go in a different direction and I went towards like the more alternative, well, what we would call alternative, which really isn't alternative, but I went down the nutritionist pathway and did my education in nutrition. And when I was in that, I specialized in nervous system support and hormonal balance because I recognized what was going on for me and thought maybe that was going to be the place to focus or the place to find answers. And it opened up more questions than answered the questions. And that's typically the way life goes. But from that, I got much more into my yoga practice. I got much more into like overall well-being, but again, was taking the complete wrong approach. Like I was going 110 into that as well and overdoing it, practicing all of the hot yoga, the power yoga, everything up, always 120% and reached burnout again. I don't know if I reached it again because I had never really come out of the first one. And that was kind of my recognition that something had to change. So it was from there, it was from the nutrition and going to get my yoga certification that I started my first business. So the first iteration of SomaPsych was actually Posana Wellness. And Posana is Sanskrit for nourished. And my focus in that was more, I think, the holistic and integrative practices, thinking about diet, nutrition, sleep hygiene, movement, exercise, yoga. And so I started it in that, and I was focused on kind of more the one-to-ones and more designing programs for individuals. I was still doing workshops and different trainings. And so Posana was very, very yogic based, very nutrition based. And then she evolved and changed into the Self Agency Academy. And when I was doing the Self Agency Academy, it still had all of those pillars. It still had all of those elements that I was passionate about. Yet I was moving more in a direction of really helping people reclaim their sense of agency or reclaiming their innate ability to restore their nervous systems. I've always, I think, questioned and challenged the Instagram ideals or the capitalist ideals of self-care and saying like you have to do this and pay this much money to be well. And I didn't want my offering to reflect that. I really wanted to help empower people from the inside out and put me out of a job. Like I would like to work with you to the point where you don't need someone like me and giving people tools in that way. And so the self-agency was amazing. I loved it, but it wasn't quite capturing everything we were about and everything that I was moving towards. So from there, I did a 300-hour trauma-informed training after reading Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. And it was one of those like those books that just land at the exact right time and like, hey, here's the direction you're heading now. And it was, I will always remember sitting in front of a fire in Queenstown, freezing, middle of winter, cold, could not put the book down, just kept going. And I was like, right, this is the direction. So when I went down the trauma-informed route, that was kind of the missing link. It was the introduction to, like, yes, yoga is a somatic practice, but I think trauma-informed just opens up our awareness of somatic practices and all of the different types and the nervous system stuff that we can do. And so from there, I started getting much more into, again, just that mental health side of things, empowering through education, and it naturally evolved. And that's what I meant by like SomaPsych kind of she happened. She created herself from all of the ways that she kind of pulled me and pushed me and the challenges that I had to go through to be where it is now, where we're very grounded in things like equity and social justice, systemic change, because I don't only want to work with like the worried well and the people that can afford the different offerings. My passion really lies in helping people from every single nook and cranny of the world, the all of the spaces in between, accessing education, resources, health, well-being, integrative services. And I think that's the direction we're heading, is trying to make everything more accessible, more inclusive, and geared towards that challenging of systems that uphold less than 1%. I want to challenge that, dismantle it, and reimagine where we're heading so that we have a more just and equitable future for everyone. And I think that comes from a lot of the spaces and places I've occupied and just recognizing what privilege affords, what it does, and how we can use it as currency to make change or to shift and to add voice. And so it's been a journey. It's been here, there, and everywhere. And I'm sure I've missed so many different things, but that's kind of the rabbit hole of here we are today.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was reflecting while you were sharing on the fact that we are recording this podcast in the week of mental health awareness here in New Zealand. I don't know if it's internationally recognized in the same week,
Mm,
but yes, that's what's happening to us. And while I was listening to you, I was also feeling really privileged, as well as for whoever is listening to us now, to the fact that you were sharing something that it could be still considered as something to judge or having prejudice towards to, which
mm,
is our own mental health and things such as it could be a burnout. And through your sharing, normalizing that in a way
mm,
that in the future, but even now, like it has to start now, we
mm,
could reduce the possibility of discriminating people or labeling them through certain experiences that they might have had in their
mm,
life. So through your sharing, I want to acknowledge that as it is one of the intention of this podcast to
mm,
realize of how even people that we are perceiving as successful, they are a human being as everybody else. So of course we need to have that journey with the up and down of life. And through your sharing, I want to just like, like celebrating you for this in particular.
Thank you. I think it's a big part of it. Hey, I think being able to speak to and voice all of the challenges and the decisions that we make is so important, because I think, especially in our day and age, we're we're shown the Instagram filter of life. We're shown the perfection, the curated existence, rather than the nitty-gritty and the hard, challenging stuff that comes alongside it. And I think that is a big piece of the puzzle, is being able to openly speak about it without the without the judgment, without all of the stuff that comes with it, and just saying, this is my lived experience and how I've chosen to navigate the world. And here we are. There might be something different that comes, but this is it. And then hopefully other people can be like, ah, it is challenging. It is a thing. And I do have to make the best decision for me in the moment. And when we know better, we can do better, step by step.
And another thing that I want to acknowledge in regards to that is trauma. Of course,
Mm,
the way that I connected with you was through trauma-informed practice, which is just one of the
mm,
million offering that you're doing. But this one in particular, because it has the word trauma in it,
mm,
which as equally as mental health can be quite either misleading in the way that we think we know about it or we are having our own perception around that. And so sometimes we feel like the need of avoiding those things rather than embracing them. I would like to ask you, and you just briefly speak a little bit about that, um, not specifically related to trauma, but everything that involves this word in connection with the person-centered approach, holistic strength base,
Mm,
empowering it even in a way of the social system, and how it is even sometimes the social system reducing it to something very small, while it has way more potential in the way that can be explored, in my experience, through this workshop with you, but
mm,
also navigated in a personal life experience of how am I opening myself up to approaching these things, and navigate them either alone or with the support of
mm,
family or friends, or even through other experiences such as it could be SomaPsych.
mm,
Not
mm,
just out of curiosity, which is always a thing, that's how it was for me, but also with something else that might call someone in that.
mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a question. It's more like
Mm,
a general
love
idea of letting you expressing it with your own words from your own personal experience, if you
it. Mm.
like.
Yeah, I think trauma's been a really interesting one. It's kind of one of those ones where it's bittersweet and it's like a double-edged situation where it's so great that we're talking more about it, especially like trauma is a universal experience. It's something that everyone will either have personal or proximal experiences of. You might be supporting somebody who's been through it. And with that, I do think it's having a buzzword moment. It's kind of having this fad right now where everyone's talking about trauma or trauma-informed practices, and we run the risk of losing its potency and its integrity in that. And I think that's a really important aspect to ground into and understand essentially like what even is trauma, what even do we mean by it, what is it, what isn't it, and everything in between. And why I'm so passionate about it is because when we actually understand what trauma is in the first place, it opens our awareness to just how normal it is to have experienced it or to support somebody who has. Trauma is an experience that fundamentally changes how one's nervous system moves through the world. It changes how they make decisions, their perspective of self, of the world, of others. It changes our physiology. It changes how our nervous system functions and how it not only receives, but navigates and acts on the world, how we move through it, who we are, the decisions we make, the actions that we take. And that, to me, when we understand that it's a experience or experiences that fundamentally change one's nervous system, it overwhelms its capacity to cope. That's where we understand that what's traumatic to one might not be traumatic to others. What is traumatic might vary, and it might change how somebody recovers, restores from it. And if we can get away from the like quantifying it, qualifying it, is it, isn't it, and just come back to how is this person's nervous system impacted? How does it move through the world? What is the function of behavior? What needs are they trying to meet? This helps us take that person-centered approach. Even if we got rid of the word trauma forever and just said, who is this person? What do they need? That's everything. Like that's the essence of a true trauma-informed practice for me, is being able to be so present with someone, so present to their nervous system, be in attunement, co-regulate, whatever it might be that's needing to happen, and then question what around them or around ourselves is perpetuating that potential trauma. And I think that's where the systems can be questioned, and the systems, the structures can then start to be held more accountable. Because I think one of the downfalls of a more Western psychological approach to trauma is that we say it's up to the individual to heal. It's up to the individual to release or heal from their trauma, XYZ. And that's not the case. It's thinking about how is that person meant to navigate systems, structures, spaces, and places that are harmful to nervous systems, that overwhelm nervous systems. And like one thing that we consider is not many people would consider workplaces to be traumatic. However, the World Health Organization is looking at implementing occupational burnout as a form of trauma and implementing that and saying occupational burnout fundamentally impacts the nervous system and overwhelms it. Well, then we can start to look at the workplace and say, does the individual have to heal from this workplace, or does the culture of the workplace have to change? And that's that systemic shift. That's that bigger social change that we can ask for and say, this might be business as usual. This might be how we've always done things, but it doesn't mean it's working. It allows us to open our perspective and say, we as a Western society, and I speak to that like Aotearoa, I speak to Canada and just from others that I've worked with, because we do work on an international base, we're not well. Our society is struggling right now. A lot of industries, a lot of spaces and places are crumbling and struggling to keep what we think it needs to be. And I think this is the time where we need to reimagine, but we need to reimagine from restored nervous systems. Because if we try to reimagine a future from a traumatized nervous system, we're going to keep perpetuating it. And I think that's why I love the work that I do and the people that I work alongside and learn from, is their focus is to support people's nervous systems, to get them topped up, to kind of charge our batteries, if you will, so we can reimagine a more nervous system focused future, a more just, equitable, accessible future for everyone. But that needs to come from a well space. We need to be topped up in order to do that. And that's where I think understanding and talking about trauma, mental health, all simmers down and boils down to understanding our nervous systems, how they work, how we restore them, how we support them, so that we can move forward and be in this for the long game as well. I don't know if that even answered the question or if we just went on a whole thing, but I love it.
It's
What I'm here for.
conversational, so
Yeah.
mine was not really a question. Your was not a direct answer, but definitely we covered the topic that we
Mhm.
wanted to speak about. So thank you for that. And another thing that I would like to not to ask you, because we understood that my question are not really question, but I wanted to check in if there was something that you wish to share in relationship to the idea of person-centered approach. I'm aware that now I know what we are talking about because I've been part of the
Mm,
experience through the training, and I'm aware of what that is, as well as the fact that sometimes when we are thinking about trauma, there is this assumption most of the time that we are thinking that we need to speak about our own trauma. And
mm,
from the training that I've done with you, I realized that it's not about that, and
mm,
it is connected somehow with the person-centered approach, but I don't want to speak too much myself
mm,
from my understanding. I would like to give you the opportunity, if you want to navigate that with me, so that even those who might have the idea, oh, if I'm going to the training or if I'm going to a place where there is this word trauma, I need to
mm,
speak about something that is so
mm,
dear to me and my trigger or activating myself in going back to part of myself or experiences that I had that I don't want to even deal in the present moment And how do I do that without speaking about it, you know?
Mm,
And so if there is something that you wish to share in relationship with this, I would love to hear it from you if you like.
I love that. I think that's such um, a crucial part of this, because I do think it's a common misconception, and I do think it's also been exploited and capitalized on in a not so supportive way, because you're so right. So often when people either see the word trauma, trauma informed, anything like that, the instant connotation for so many can be, this means I have to either share my trauma or directly work on my trauma. Opposite is true. It's like complete opposite approach. And we have so many people reach out and say, I really want to do this training and I don't want to talk about my trauma. And I'm like, in what world would I be asking you that? But it's because that's such a common approach, not the approach that we take. We take an approach of, not only on the trainings do we solely focus educational wise, so we really get into the theoretical, the nuance of trauma, polyvagal theory, somatics, social justice, systemic change. We get into the theory, content, education, and do practices to help embody it, to help restore nervous system. But we're not going into the past. We're not going into your personal experience with it, because not only can we not change what's happened, we can't go back and change the traumatic experience, but we also can't change how the nervous system responded in that moment. What we can work with and what we can do in a more growth-based way is say, how did whatever happened to you change or impact your nervous system and how it moves through the world today? So then we get to meet someone's nervous system and say, right, maybe we have this tendency or this somatic pattern or whatever it might be. And we work with that. We work with discharging that survival energy that was imprinted from that traumatic experience. And now we're working in the here and now so we can move forward, rather than thinking we can change the past or have to make sense of it. On a somatic level, we can move through it without recalling it to it, like verbally, without going back into those memories. It's more physiologically, what do I notice? How do I move it through me? And we predominantly focus on resourcing people, giving them the tools and techniques that help to strengthen their window of capacity or their window of tolerance from Dan Siegel. When we can strengthen that window of capacity, our ability to move through the world, then once we strengthen that, be it through nervous system tools, polyvagal, informed tools, somatic tools, once the nervous system starts to balance, sympathetic, parasympathetic, once we start to get into that restoration, support, rejuvenation, things happen behind the scenes. The hippocampus can start to do its thing. The amygdala can start to strengthen in a healthy way. So we're supporting the brain structures, the brain regions, while also discharging that cortisol, adrenaline, getting the balance back in the body. And the amount of people that I've worked with, both on an educational training base, but also personal one-to-one somatic sessions, the amount of people that say, I feel better and we haven't even talked about the thing. I'm like, yeah, welcome to your nervous system. She's so smart. Your nervous system knows what's up. Your body gets it, and your body has the ability to move in and through these things. And we aren't equipped with the tools. We're not taught these tools. And sometimes we have to seek out those support systems. We need people wrapped around us. We need nervous system support, somatics, whatever it might be, therapy, everything in between, to be able to top us up so that the body can do what it needs to do to work in and through that. And I'm also not saying that there's no room for talk therapy or there's no need to remember it or to make meaning and make narrative about it. Absolutely. And it's got to be a both and approach. It's got to be like we have a mind and a body. Trauma happens to both of them. It's got to be a both and approach. And so when we can work with the nervous system in how it is today, then we can set it up for where it wants to move moving forward. That's my thoughts.
And
And
that to
then some.
me make a lot of sense. So I'm grateful of the opportunity that you're sharing my reframe certain aspect of our core
Mm,
belief related with the topic and inspire someone as well in reaching out,
mm,
possibly even directly to you, to know more and discovering how something like that can become something meaningful for their
mm.
own journey, to add to their own bucket, tools, uh,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, but like inner resources, to use it as one of the other approaches that can be beneficial for us,
Mm,
um, as well as other alternative opportunities that we can connect with.
mm. And I
And
think like I want to layer on to that because you've got me kind of thinking about the wording of person-centered and nervous systems. And when we think about this kind of future that we're wanting to live into, the one that accounts for and supports everyone, it also, we have to think about a future that supports everyone's neurocircuitry, everyone's different flavor and flair of being human. And person-centered means really thinking about what each individual needs to support their nervous system. And a lot of the time, it's simple things like normalizing movement, normalizing moving to like feel things. Like if you've got a big feeling coming up, it's like, can we normalize shaking that off? Can we normalize having tears for whatever reason, the happy ones, the sad ones, the angry ones? Can we normalize expressing emotion? Because that's a big part of not only extreme stress on the nervous system, but things that can traumatize the nervous system is suppression of emotion. If it's a chronic suppression of not feeling, a chronic inability or unsafety to do so, all of that, we've programmed people to be these stoic, polite, well, like just held together beings where we're like, I've got it together, I'm on it, all is well. But we don't normalize emotion, expression, having a tantrum, doing big movements. Like, when's the last time an adult just like threw a fit? We don't do these things. We don't sit in public and regulate our nervous systems. We don't smile when we want to smile or laugh when we want to laugh. We very much, and I say we because I'm putting myself in this category as well. Like there has to be a moment where we say enough with societal expectation, enough with these norms that are so archaic and that we're so beyond them. Can we reimagine what it's like to simply be human? And I think that's the person-centered approach, is rehumanizing what it means to move through a challenging world. Like we are facing things in this day and age that we cannot even comprehend. Yet we're expected to all be put together and act like we're okay. We're not, though. So, where are the spaces and places where we can express that and let emotion move through us and be supported and held in our emotion as well? So that's kind of my space and place. I would love to just normalize being human and the messiness. Hey, like being human is weird and hard and everything in between, and it's beautiful and it's heartbreaking. So how do we normalize all of that? That messy middle, that's us.
and the as well, I don't know how to phrase this, but our ability to accept the imperfection of
Mm,
us as human being and life itself.
yes. Yeah,
Mm, thank you
that.
for that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, actually, that everything you just said comes from one of my, I've had this quote, and it's literally like pinned on my corkboard in front of me right now. I've had this quote for probably 20 something years. Our true freedom, our wildness, lies in our ability to recognize ourselves as perfectly imperfect, wonderfully flawed, yet ultimately magic. Like,
The
that's
essence.
everything. That's that's it. Like the magic of being so imperfect that we just fumble through life, yet still thrive and still do things and still live in this incredible world that we live in. It's being able to hold all of that.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And I guess that one of my final question, because I haven't told you that I have a secret question to end up all of this, but I just wanted to check. I'm aware that my focus was mainly with my experience that I had with you in
Mm.
the time that we shared the training together. And I wonder if there is something else that I might have missed, because I know that you have all these other face, all these other hats that you're wearing. And I wonder if there is something that you wish to take the opportunity of speaking about through this podcast together, through this conversation.
Mm. Yeah, I do. I wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of different things I'm passionate about. I think the one that started it all and the one that really led me to SomaPsych as she is today is yin yoga, but like a very nervous system focused yin. I I would say our nervous system yin isn't the kind of modern day yin that you see here, there, and everywhere. We take a very polyvagal and nervous system approach to yin yoga, and we do it on a therapeutic level. And I think quite often yin is seen as the kind of like emotional yoga where we just go to yin to cry and feel our emotions. But it's it's the opposite approach that we take. Like, yep, emotions are welcome. Here we are. And it's more about that kind of parasympathetic space. So we spend a lot of time doing practices like vagus nerve support and stimulation, using yin yoga as a tool to build our tolerance to feel things in our body, to hold experiences, to hold challenges and move through them. It's a very kind of on the mat, translate it off the mat and into the world. So yin is kind of the foundation that everything I do is built on. That's what the 20-hour trauma-informed training is built on, the 300-hour facilitator training, the therapeutic yin. It all comes down to that. It's been the practice that not only saved me, changed me, transformed me, but the one that keeps me in this work. It's the tool that keeps me coming back. So I do love sharing that practice with others. I do classes, trainings, everything in between. That's my heart. I love Yin. She's my foundation for everything.
And thank you so much for touching as well on the topic of yoga.
Mm,
I'm aware myself as a yoga
mm,
practitioner that there is this misconcept, mainstream concept of what yoga is and what it
mm,
shouldn't be, from this hypothetical standard of beauty and
mm.
flexibility.
Yes.
And mine is not a yin practice, but it's still like a very gentle practice that I offer. And I would like to reflect on what you share on the fact that yoga, as any other thing, has so many different faces to what
Mm.
the internet can
Oh,
portray it to be. So
mm,
realizing that sometimes what we are imagining yoga to be is not necessarily what is. And
yeah.
so normalizing practices as well, that they don't need to make you feel beautiful in the next photo that you're going to post on social media, but
Yes.
it has benefit even in the more gentle and slow practices, as it could be yin yoga. So I really want to reinforce that for all those that never practiced before and might take the opportunity of diving a little bit deeper in what it could
Mm,
offer to you based on what you need, including things that you might think you don't need, but actually they might turns out to be the one that
mm,
your body, especially as well,
mm,
it could be your mind and your soul might actually need, and it will be, for instance, like relaxing, slowing down, and grounding more.
yeah. And so many people, I think often, especially with yin, they're like, oh, that's the easy one where you just fall asleep. And I'm like, Yin's probably the most challenging one you can come across because Yin shows you everything. She shows you all of your stuff. Like when you get on the mat with Yin, you're like, oh, here is all of my layers. Here's every bit of me. And that's like using that as a therapeutic tool, I just think is so powerful. And we throw all the Instagram posts out the window and say, rather than trying to fit your body into this arbitrary pretzel, how does your body wish to express? How does the shape meet you where you're at? And maybe that's taking a nap for the next 60 minutes. And how perfect is that? So I love it. I just love yoga is the one that I keep coming back to. It's having a moment as everything else is. And I think those that are in integrity, we just keep carrying it and loving it, and it'll come full circle. It will.
Thank you so much for sharing this as well as everything else. And I would like to remind everyone that all the links will be in the description of the event so that for whoever wish to deepen something that you've been curious about during this episode and reach out to Amanda as well as her team, you can find all those options available, including all the upcoming events. And I wanted to ask you if there is something that you wish to share in terms of the plan until
Mm,
the end of the year, eventually next year as well, that you would just want to touch base on
mm.
that you might find important for this moment.
Yeah, I think our plan is to keep doing everything that we're doing. We've got in-person and online 20-hour trauma-informed practice trainings. We've got the 300-hour trauma-informed facilitator training, the 100-hour nervous system yin teacher training. And we go into different organizations as well. So we're working with some really incredible and inspiring organizations where I go in, work alongside them, strengthen what's already working well within the organization, and then layer in some considerations and trauma-informed practices to get the standard of care across the board really solid. So that's also a really exciting thing, seeing organizations reach out and say, we want to do as best we can for those that we're working alongside and supporting. And so if you know of organizations that are wanting that kind of integrity within trauma informed, I am here for it. So good. Watch out, world. We're doing it.
Amazing. And thank you for putting so much love and passion into what you're doing because the
Mhm.
world needs people like you, and I'm glad that we are fortunate enough to live in the same country so that I have this opportunity myself to
Mhm.
connect to you, but as well as knowing that an opportunity such as the podcast could go worldwide and letting people know that these things exist and
Mhm.
it doesn't just stop here in New Zealand, but it is worldwide and it could be truly internationally spread across every country. So thank you for that.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for just highlighting all of the spaces that people are doing. Like, we're all in this together and building these networks and building this kind of spider web and ecosystem of goodness is something that's so important. We can't do any of this in isolation. So having folks like you not only doing the mahi, the work that you do, but also the network building is so incredible. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm wondering if you're ready for my final question.
I am.
Perfect. I usually don't mention it so people cannot prepare
I love it.
beforehand. And it could be considered as a three-part question, but this is a specific one. So finally, I have a proper question to offer, not just like
I
chattering
love it.
about. And it's coming from the opportunity of keep on connecting with one another, but also with everyone who is listening in this moment. And the idea is, if you would like to share with us today 3 empowering messages that you would like to leave for us, you can considering even as a message for yourself, for me, or for anyone else who in this moment is connected to us.
I love that. How beautiful. Mm,
And no matter how small or big, you can also go back to the quote if you want to
I
use the
do.
quote as one of
Yeah.
those 3 points.
Well, I think like that quote is just everything for me. It's that like that reminder that you only get one shot at this life. You get one chance. Don't take it seriously. Everything is the biggest deal and it's the smallest deal. Like nothing matters and everything matters. So with that, just have fun and do the things that fill your soul so that you can keep showing up for those around you. Like bring the magic back to life, bring the joy and the pockets of moments, bring that back into every possible interaction, every quiet moment, implement them, love them, and find the beauty in the small moments, those moments where you don't think anything's really happening. Take a moment to recognize the entire universe had to conspire for you to be in this very moment at this very time. And that's pretty incredible. So, like, be present, put your phone down, look people in the eye, and smile. I think those would be my biggest things. Just more connection. We need it. I don't know
Thank you
if
so
that's
much.
three, but there
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, I'll take them. I'll take them. And it's always
Mm,
so such a pleasure to me to arrive to this point because I'm the first one absorbing those messages and I could see my body responding to that in a really
mm,
beautiful way. And I'm hoping that not just this final part, but the whole conversation will be as an inspiration as it was for me in this time, sharing it with you for anybody else who take the time to arrive up to this point in our conversation and see what whoever is listening wants to absorb, but also wants to release
mm,
out if might not serve somehow. But
mhm,
mostly for me, getting inspired by it and deciding what step we want to take
mhm,
to empower ourselves in our own journey through those connections, through the community. So thank you
mm,
so much, Amanda, for the opportunity.
mm,
I feel really honored by this.
mm. Thank you. Thank you. I've absolutely loved connecting with you in this way. And thank you for your presence and intentional connecting and questions. It's such a pleasure. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who is listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Grazie per averci fatto compagnia. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you wish to stay updated and connected, visit us on our social media channels and our website www.artyoga.co. Ci sentiamo presto. Ciao! See you!